Well, there are a lot of Saints fans in the media, so much so that SEN, there was a joke amongst listeners for a while that it was the St Kilda Entertainment Network. And Mark Fine, one of the most well-known radio personalities through his time at SEN, through the evenings program and Finey's Final Siren. And Finey's Final Siren will make a return to SEN throughout the 2024 season. He's also a passionate Saint, and the memory that comes to mind first for me was the 2009 preliminary final where Finey came on immediately after the game, and then I came on immediately after that for the overnights program, and just how it was a mixture of nerves and relief in the SEN studios after that cliffhanger preliminary final. But Finey, nice to have you with us on the eve of another season, and it wouldn't be a St Kilda pre-season without some controversy and talking points.
First of all, thanks for having me on. And it's funny how, you know, I've done a bit of media over the years and I'm a bit toey for Friday night, but you come onto a St Kilda podcast, you feel like you're at home, you're amongst friends, you can say anything. And, yeah, well, controversy. You know, it's funny. When, oh, God, it's just escaped my mind. Who got rubbed out for 4 weeks last week?
Powell
Pepper.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what idiot goes hammer and tongs in a practice match and gets rubbed out for 4 weeks? Well, I got my answer. Not ideal, and our injury list isn't ideal, but I'm surprisingly comfortable with the notion of the 22 we're going to put on the field, which is an amazing position to be in, given that we were a side 2 or 3 seasons ago that could not take a dent to the chassis without expecting to lose. We had to have our 22 of our best 25 on the field, but here we are heading down to Cardinia Park, and I think we'll put a 22 on the field that's going to be very hard to beat no matter who they are.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, mate, that I've been saying for a little while that you compare this generation of Ross Lyon Saints, obviously, to the 09, 10 group, and clearly the top-end talent isn't your Rewalt, Hayes, Del Santo, Goddard, etc. But it's still pretty good. Our top 6 is still pretty good when they all come to play, but our bottom 6, now depth, is probably greater than it's almost ever been. And like you said, it almost doesn't matter if we have a couple of injuries or someone gets robbed out. It's kind of next man up, and you kind of trust them to be able to do the job. But I was thinking that Jimmy Webster's potential suspension, we know he's going to be suspended. We don't know how long for yet. But Parker, I was saying to you just off air that the suspension is probably worse for him than it is for the footy club, because there's probably 3 or 4 blokes ready to take that step up and fill a halfback flank or a small defender type role. Jimmy Webster's out of contract. Does he come back in the team?
Well, I mean, we've got more halfback flankers, which I used to use as rhyming slang, than a Chapel Street nightclub on Saturday night. I mean, I was trying to work out actually how it would work out, given how impressive Riley Bonner's been, how solid Liam Stocker is. You got Naz. We might not have Sinclair for the start of the season, but there's, you know, you are spot on. If I was Jimmy Webster, I'd be thinking that I have shot myself in the foot. I'm going to be coming from a long way back, because I reckon that position is filled, and he was always going to play. I'm still worried about, and Geelong's got a really dangerous small forward setup, so I'm not quite sure, because he would have taken one of the small forwards, but they're just going to have to negotiate that. It's interesting, you know, that not that he's groomed yet, not that he's ready yet, but I think in the not too distant future, Riley Garcia could be a perfect small forward lockdown defender. But, you know, I mean, gee, you have a look at that back line and there's going to be some new faces in it, no matter what, including the big kicker from Tasmania might get a chance. Who knows?
So we're talking about the players we're bringing in, that sort of thing. Do you see us more bringing in players and trying to evolve a team around what we've recruited, or bring those recruits in to blend into what we're already trying to do? Which kind of way you reckon he's going to go this year?
Well, he might not have an option round one, might You know, the fact is that we've got injuries across the park. It's sort of really unfortunate for Paddy Dow because there might have been an opening there. I'm not sure where Crouch is. I get a sense that we are going to continue on with what I call the Philippou principle, and that is he played 23 games last year. I think everybody sort of agrees that, you know, in a real season now means everything context, he might not have got 23 games, but he was never going to get dropped because Ross Lyon believes in him and he believes he's the future. And I think we're going to see the same with Darcy Wilson. And who knows, opportunity might give Schoenmakers the same opportunity. Look, we should be bullish about this season. Who are we scared of? Well, hopefully nobody, because we played them all in the first 5 weeks. So we'll know. But I think it's still a foot in either camp. One, have a shy at the stumps this year, but we are building the sort of list that is going to be formidable in 2 to 4 years. So can you do both? Ross can, I can't.
I remember thinking last year that we had to navigate our way through the first month with all of the injuries and just hang in there. We ended up winning all of those games. And you kind of feel like this year as well, that with the injuries we have early in the season, Geelong and then a 5-day break into Collingwood, then our bogey side Essendon, if we could somehow get to 2-1 or 1-1 through that first fortnight, then we've done a pretty good job to set ourselves up. So it's going to be a fascinating early journey through the season. Has it surprised you as somebody coming back into the media fold that last year everybody obviously wrote them off thinking new coach coming off a disappointing end to 2022, where are they at? No one picked them to play finals, and I don't blame them for that. But has it surprised you they've done it again on the exposed evidence of last year?
I'm very resentful of anybody that pots us, first of all. I mean, yeah, look, at the start of last... It's funny, it's actually turned around, because at the start of last year, we had a look and we said, we don't have a forward line. We don't have Max King. We don't have Membry. How are we going to put together a forward line that's going to beat sides? I mean, we had Zane Cordy kick a winning goal. So it's a bit different this year. The forward line, we don't have Butler, but it still looks very potent and very settled. I mean, if we would have kicked with any aplomb in the second quarter against North, then we would have had 2 high-scoring practice games, wouldn't we? So we've sort of got to negotiate, again, not a full list, but let's be honest, it's a harder assignment this year. I mean, God, I mean, how St Kilda is this? Geelong unveil their new ground, which, you know, for the people of Geelong is enormous, because I wouldn't build a sandcastle in Geelong and they've got a whole new ground. And then I'm watching GWS play some nondescript, you know, that first, what was it called? A match simulation against Sydney. And I just knew how this sentence was going to finish. Callan Ward set to make history and play his 300th game. And I knew what the next line was going to be. In round 5 against St Kilda. Yeah, of course we will. Why not? Why not play every milestone? I heard Buddy's coming back for one game again this year. You know, so it's a tough assignment, these opening games, but we'll know where we're at. And by the way, I'm not scared by what happens anyhow. I don't think Essendon's our bogey team. I don't think Essendon would be Port Melbourne's bogey team, to be honest. I've got strong opinions on their recruiting. Carlton were way off the pace and made the preliminary final. I don't care. I really believe that we have got a list that at some point this season is going to make people say, this is a very hard team to beat. This is a really powerful lineup. I really believe that. I mean, we played an entire year without a functional or practical forward line last year. We still had injuries around the ground, and we were learning a different game style, and I thought we were fantastic. So I don't really care what. Look, here's what's going to happen. At the end of the season, there's a final 8, and people say, who's going to make the 8 the next year? No one's just going to say it's going to be the same 8. You know, you're not paying the Kane Corns of this world not to have an opinion. And you look at that final 8, and you're probably going to look at us as a potential team to drop out. But that's only historical bias and maybe a bit of prejudice. I can say that on this podcast, at least. I won't say it on Friday night.
No, we want you to. We want you to.
Yeah.
That's the good listening.
Look, am I getting too excited? I have us top 4. But when people go, oh, you can't be serious, you know, who's your top 4? I said St Kilda and 3 others. I couldn't give a stuff who the others are.
well, I mean, early days. What have you made of the two practice games? At purely top level, looks like we're running a lot more. We're kicking long. We're more direct. It's just a real run and gun. Like when we're in position, run and gun type football. Move it forward, kick it long to Max. And B, what have you thought of Max so far this early point of the season?
Well, look, he's really confident in himself, which is fantastic. He's not clunking them as yet, but he's certainly causing headaches for the opposition defence. And, I mean, he is such an underrated commodity. People have to realise, 4 goals a game is the old 8 goals a game. And he's good for 4 or 5 goals a game. How about that goal he kicked against Essendon?
Yeah.
That was massive. That style of football that we're playing is not suited to an outdoor suburban ground. Let's be honest. It was windy both weeks. There's a lot of distractions at Moorabbin. Is that Ferris wheel? They took that away. I think that was there for the women's game.
It was there for the women's, distracting.
Yeah. But you just translate or you transpose that to Marvel, and it could be marvellous. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching Henry play for the entire season. Darcy Wilson looks great, and we've got a steady midfield. I think Jack will be much better this year, the skipper. We haven't seen Sinclair. I mean, Sinclair fits into that style of football so beautifully with his delivery. And we've got a much more practical forward line with Tim Membry playing as his style of hit up forward than having Caminiti and Max in the same team, because, I mean, Anthony Caminiti's raw, and he did provide headaches for defenders and fellow forwards alike sometimes during the last season. So I just think it works really well with Sharman down there. I'd love to see Butler working at their feet. That'll happen. And, of course, one day, Lance Collar. It's the right sort of mix, isn't it?
So I was going to talk about Sharman. I was going to say, do we think he's someone that could fly under the radar and cause a lot more damage than what he has previously? When last year he seemed to be on the outer. I don't know whether Ross wasn't a fan of his or whatever, but he, through injury, pushed himself back into the team and showed a little bit. And pre-season so far, he's flying for every ball. He's holding the marks. He's kicking the ball as straight as he ever did. Think he could be a bit of a sneaky to cause a bit of damage to teams over the season?
He is, to me, I mean, I've just obviously have nightmares from 1997, and I know he's not Shane Ellen, but he is exactly the sort of forward, the third forward in a final, that is a match winner. He doesn't need a lot of kicks at goal. He's a beautiful kick. I reckon he's the second best set shot of any forward in the competition. I'll ask you guys. I reckon he's the second best. Who do you reckon the best is? He's good.
I don't know, Nick Larkey?
Nick Larkey's up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tex Walker's up there.
Yeah.
Tex Walker's up there.
I love Logan McDonald. God, he's a beautiful kick.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah.
The
So
other
maybe
the other
fifth-
bloke at
maybe
West
the
Coast
fifth
goes
best.
all right. Oscar Allen's okay, but no, I think Sharman's right up there.
Yeah, I'm saying, but it's good to have a good, reliable set shot at goal because he doesn't need a lot of opportunities. He can really leap. Remember that period he played in the back line under Brett Ratton? He performed some of the highest leaping one-armed spoils I've ever seen. He actually didn't look out of place there. So
Rocket said he was going to take mark of the century on this podcast a couple of years ago.
yeah, possibly. I mean, I love when a big man takes a big mark. There's something special about somebody tall getting right up there. But it's funny, you look at our side and people have been rightly critical of a couple of fundamental errors we made at the top of the draft. I mean, if there's a good case to say that the two best players in the competition are Bontempelli and Petrarca. And we bypassed both of them. But our bottom end drafting, I mean, have a look at the All-Australian team last year and the squad. We had 3 guys in the squad and they were all rookies. I mean, it's incredible. And then our mid-season drafting has been phenomenal as well. And to pick up a rejected player from the bottom team of the competition in Mason Wood and see what sort of footballer he is. I think Stocker's going to have a really good season. He's fully fit and he's actually a leader out there. He's very courageous. You throw Jack Hayes in, who could have been anything except his body won't let him. And we certainly know what we're doing when everybody else goes home. So compliments there. I don't know. I do know. I actually do know. I know this, and I suggest this to all of you guys as well. If it wasn't St Kilda, wouldn't there be huge raps on this list? I mean,
Yeah, probably.
That's fair. Yeah.
People are showing sort of vivid imagination and forecasting Gold Coast as a top 4 team in 2 years and premiers in the next 3 or 4 years. I reckon had we not been St Kilda, that would be the sort of rap on us. Well,
And I think the other part of it is that pre-existing narrative from 12 months ago where a lot of people made calls and it's almost like they've got to see those calls through to the death and say, no, I've planted my flag here and that's where I'm staying. It doesn't matter what happens. And Kane Corns is probably one of those people that we have mentioned a couple of times. Just a couple before we let you go, obviously reminiscing. There is that video floating around on YouTube of the last game at Moorabbin in 1992, and you pop up on that as one of the voices in the crowd that gets spoken to. I guess just reminiscing about things like that. Watching St Kilda play at Moorabbin, it's obviously very different now, either watching the girls play or watching these practice matches. But I must admit, a few years ago, watching us play Hawthorn there with my dad, it was a great feeling of reminiscing of those times. Does it bring back those sorts of memories of the animal enclosure and that type of thing?
to be honest, to me, it doesn't. It's quite a different feeling ground, even though the ground itself is actually the goalposts are in the same position. I mean, that was amazing that last day at Moorabbin. I won a competition to pen the words on the final banner, which was great. I later found out I think I was the only entrant. But and I wrote this really long sort of prose. And I thought, well, there's no way they'll fit it on a banner. But they did. and I got sort of, I was on the ground. I got given, I can't remember who our sponsors were, I got given one of the tracksuit tops that the
Philip
players
Morris, probably.
Philip Morris, I think. Yeah. Very, may I say, has any team had a more colourful collection of sponsors than St Kilda?
Cigarettes followed by beer, I think it was.
Yeah, I like Hugel and Hoyle. I believe reticulated watering systems are best advertised on the back of wooden spoon winning football teams.
Well, when you've got no money, you take what you can get.
yeah. You know, to me, what my favourite ever sponsorship in football was?
Mm-hmm.
It was in the dying days of Fitzroy, and it was Rosita's corn chips. And I went into 15 supermarkets and never found Rosita's corn chips. And I felt they screwed up. They put all their money into Fitzroy and didn't actually have any money to make corn chips. Anyway, but yeah, look, I mean, Moorabbin was a great place to watch football. It made the unhavable, sufferable, and enjoyable. There was a famous day against Geelong. 3/4 time, we were down by a poultice, and the entire animal enclosure decided as a protest to face the grandstand for the final quarter. And I remember there was whoever left in the ground. We must have kicked a goal, and I turned around to have a look at what happened. And Russell Holmesby gave me the biggest clip over the ear ever. But yeah, look, it was great. Did I love Waverley? I did at times. I fell out of loving at Waverley at half time in that game against Hawthorn when Tim Watson was coach. That was the last time I loved Waverley. But I tell you what, I really enjoy watching us play well at Marvel. So, yeah, it doesn't matter. You could put us on the moon, and I think there are plans to actually play a game with St Kilda on the moon. Having been
has to be against Port Adelaide or Gold Coast.
As the away side, yeah.
But it'll be our home game. We'll actually be playing against the lunar. There'll be a new team on the moon. Tasmania won't get up. They'll put a team on the moon, and we'll have to sacrifice a home game to play them.
They'll go into their first season ahead of us in the favouritism for the flag too.
Yeah, hostile territory. But I'll tell you one thing about
we should be right.
I'll tell you one thing about playing on the moon.
Yeah.
There'll be no atmosphere.
Hey.
Oh. Finey, I want to ask you about your return to SEN. People have been begging you to come back for Finey's final siren for years. I mean, it feels like it's been a decade, but people have been asking you to come back forever. Hutchie's been asking you to come back. The station's been asking you to come back. What was it that finally got you across the line?
Look, my wife and I bought a deli just over 2 years ago. And it's been a great business, very hard work. We've just done a full reno. So we've sort of put that to bed. And not to bed, it's still, but we've got that where we want it, and it's really humming along nicely.
Lenny's in Caulfield North?
Caulfield North. And so they approached me and I said, you know what? I work so hard during the week, but if you're willing to throw me a bit of coin, and I asked for a couple of ads a day, 7 days a week for the duration of the footy season for the shop, I thought that'd be really worthwhile. And they came to the party, so we're doing that. I mean, I've got to tell you, I'm a bit nervous. A lot of people really expect me to come on there, and they remember me being very abrasive and, having a crack. Well, that only can happen organically, because if I just come on and the first caller goes, "It's great to have you back," and I say, "You're a dickhead, mate," it's not going to be genuine, is it? So, for most part, I ran that show respectful of the callers, and I like talking football, and I like talking football from hopefully with the callers with a passion and with some sort of insight. I am, though, reminded. Do you remember John Bennett played for St Kilda?
Yeah, had a very good career.
Yeah, you see, John Bennett played for St Kilda. Then he went to the Bulldogs. And he came back to St Kilda. But he was never the player when he came back as he was when he first played for us. And I'm just hoping I don't do a John Bennett and lose something in the translation. I mean, the same happened to Heath Black. He was never the same player when he went back to Fremantle. So,
true.
Look, it's 2 hours it's great fun. I think there's only one St Kilda game, which is good and bad. Good because it's hard to be unbiased. Actually, do you know, a lot of the time, most of my criticism came from St Kilda supporters claiming that I overcompensated and was hard on St Kilda. But
Yeah,
I mean,
I can imagine that.
Maybe that's true. Look, actually, it's hard. It's going to be hard on Friday night because anybody that knows me know that I'd rather stick a needle in my eye than say something good about Carlton. So you know, we're up and running, and I mean, what's going to happen when the first person rings in and goes, "Isn't Blake Acres a fantastic footballer?" It's just, what do I say? Yeah, I always used to love him.
That's when you bring the dickhead out. That's when you start up.
Yeah, the problem is the dickhead will be me.
Because anyone that you sort of recall talking to over the previous instance of your show that you sort of think, wonder if they're going to be calling in again, just to throw back to what they brought to you to the show, just to see if you've still got the memory of them and that sort of thing.
Well, there was Jim from Hawthorn, but I heard he passed away. But that doesn't mean he won't call in because he was a very reliable caller. He had that big Scottish accent. There was a great caller, JD, used to call in from Prague in Czechoslovakia, and I know he's contacted me. He's very keen to call in when the Tigers are playing, and always good to get a call from Czechoslovakia. But there's Muzzer from Geelong. He's actually contacted me at the shop in the last couple of weeks. He's completely blind and goes to Carlton games, and obviously I take advantage of that. Look, there were a lot of the regular callers. So there was a famous caller. I think her name was Hillary. She was a Melbourne supporter.
Yeah.
Quite sort of passionate. And there was an incident involving a St Kilda player and a Melbourne player. And I'm trying to remember. Oh, who was it? It was similar to the Jimmy Webster incident, where one of our players took one of their players out. She rang up and responded in kind, even though she was in her 70s. And I felt so bad at the end of the call, having really torn shreds off her, that I gave her $100 voucher to Sexyland. Which next week she rang up and said she went and availed herself of some product. So, yeah, I mean, one of my favourite. So I would later find out, and this is fantastic, that a lot of the coaches listened. The umpires definitely used to listen. Dennis Cometti apparently used to love the show, listening on the way home from calling the games. And that's, that is humbling to... I know that both the Scott brothers used to listen to it because it was a great way to gauge how your supporters felt, and umpires would get an idea of how their umpiring was received by the crowd, which was always terrible. There was a really intense, not intense, but a really strong listenership amongst footballers. So one night, I get this call, and it's young blokes in a car, and Collingwood had just played, and they were talking about, and I can't remember which player it was. Now, he'd had a pretty good game. Oh, it was actually Seedsman. It was the guy that went to Adelaide.
Yeah.
And he'd had a pretty good game, and they were saying, how hopeless is Seedsman? And you heard all this giggling in the car. And Paul Seedsman was driving. It was two of his teammates who rang in to bag him while he was driving them home. So I guess that's pretty good feedback from players who were playing on the night.
I wanted to ask you one more from me before we let you go. But
sure,
tell us about the deli. Tell us about Lenny's, because Lenny's has been a staple in North Caulfield for the community in Caulfield for a long time. What was it that made you get involved and kind of step away from media and go and work in a deli?
Oh, well, actually made me step away from media. Look, he had every right to create the station that he's created, and there were guys and girls that lost their jobs, their positions, but I absolutely believe that you take over a business and you've got a vision, and his vision is an ambitious one, and, you know, more power to him. So I'd done a few other things in media, but it's hard. There's very few positions at the table, especially when you're not a past player. So we were looking to buy a business, and then COVID hit. And I think the only thing people bought in COVID were overpriced dogs as family pets.
And toilet paper.
Yeah, well, if you could get it. And we come to the end of COVID, and I've been doing a bit of work here and there, but not a lot. And me and my missus are in bed. We share the same bed. It's quite normal. It was Sunday morning, and, you know, couples used to read the papers on Sunday morning, but she was going through her socials, and I was just checking the overnight soccer scores. And she said, "Oh, Lenny's is up for sale." Now, Lenny and Lenny's has been a mate of mine for 35 years. I played cricket with him. I've always been passionate about food. I said, "We're going to buy that." She laughed. And then we put the wheels in motion. A lot of people wanted to buy it. It is an iconic business, but to be honest, when we got there, it was falling apart. We knew that we had to buy it and rebuild it. So we spent a year and a half learning the business, and we've completed the reno. So it's a beautiful looking shop now. It's been amazing. Look, it services the not orthodox, but it services the Jewish community, and we have a lot of non-Jewish customers that are really interested in European style food and Jewish style food. If you're not feeling well, chicken soup is good for everybody. But oh boy, is that an interesting client base. Lenny actually said to me, he said, "One thing, Finey, are you going to be able to handle these customers? Because they are of a demanding nature."
Yeah.
And my goodness, we've had some funny stories. You know, I had a guy come in. It's a big shop, and we're doing the reno, about to start the reno, and he goes, I got a really good idea for you, what you should do with half the shop." I said, "What?" He said, "You should sell tyres." I said, "What?" "Why would I sell tyres in the shop?" He goes, "Because my son is importing tyres from South Africa, and I think you should sell tyres." And I've had so much advice from everybody what I should do with the shop. You know, and it's like, "You know me." I said, "Not really." They go, yeah, you know, I'm friends with your mother. My mother's 94. She's got a few friends. I said, "Yeah, your point being?" Well, the point being was they were after a discount, but, you know, I mean, everybody's got an angle when they come in, but everybody loves talking football. Got a lot of very keen, you know, St Kilda supporters, Carlton supporters. We don't have any Collingwood supporters because there's a sign on the door. So, yeah, it's been great. It's a really good experience. The customers are fantastic, and we're a big part of the community, which is, the one thing that people do come in is they're a bit surprised that I'm now covered in tattoos. Little hobby that I've undertaken. And, you know, Jewish people and tattoos don't really go hand in hand, so they're a little bit concerned about that. But we love it, and any listeners to this podcast, come in, say good day, and I'll make you a bagel on the house. Just mention Unpluggered.
Beautiful.
It's been terrific reminiscing. I know you mentioned Jim in Hawthorn. He was always a fantastic caller, except when his own side played. He was insufferable under those circumstances. But the rest of the time, very good. And obviously listening, you know, about Hillary and all of those, it's memories of a bygone era, and that's why it's great to have you back. Yeah,
Parker, you filled the breach for me brilliantly many times. We were late nighters, sometimes going into the morning. There is a particular. It's a really intimate way to do radio because for a lot of people, we're the voice in their house, so it's actually important radio. And it was always a pleasure. Look, we know it wasn't easy doing radio then. I think we shared some quite interesting producers over the period. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. And one of them's still at SEN. I can mention his name now. He's a passionate Hawthorn supporter, and I believe he was writing the quiz straight out of the Herald Sun for a little while there. Didn't go down too well.
So I'm doing the quiz one evening. A-Rod's my producer. And we're at question 7, and the guy's got he's got 5 in a row, and I'm about to ask question 8, and he goes, hang on, I'll ask question 8 for you. And I didn't realise it was out of the paper. And he reads out the question. It's exactly what I've got written in front of me. I said, what's going on? He goes, that's on page 32 of the Herald Sun.
I reckon everyone's got an A-Rod story, I reckon.
Yeah, and especially A-Rod. Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, there were some great producers as well. Braden Ingram, of course, who's Channel 9?
Channel 9, correct, yep.
Yeah, and he's a great bloke. And I mean, Spider was hilarious. The great Matthew Lee, passionate doggy supporter. And I occasionally speak to Spider. Yeah, there were and launched a few, and not just off air, but we had on air guys. For example, I started. Nigel Carmody did his first media with the evening program, and you'd know Nigel quite well, Darren, through racing
and Tom Brown. Tom Brown was a Formula One expert on the overnights program back in the day before. Which quite a little known tidbit on him. So
that he was an expert on something. Sure.
Well, maybe that's where the past should have stayed. But
no, that's actually not fair. He was actually pretty good. He copped the rounds of the kitchen, but he certainly broke a few stories. Yeah.
One name that's thrown to be Teo. He's doing A-League.
Oh, what is Teo? Teo was fantastic. I think he might. Was it Teo that fell asleep overnight?
Yes, he was one who did that. That's for sure, and he gets reminded of that reasonably frequently. But it is a common thing when there's no one else in the building that can indeed happen. So.
Oh yeah, it's not unreasonable to fall asleep on your own radio program.
Who hasn't?
Yeah. Let's be honest. We put our listeners to sleep. Aren't we allowed to go to sleep?
I must admit, I never fell asleep on overnights, but I did have some long blinks that might have gone for 15 seconds or so. So I would have got close. But it was a challenging experience.
You know the greatest thing that happened on overnights?
Yeah, there's a few. There was a few.
Well, this was
which one are you going with?
When Spider was producing for Shebexter.
Yeah, I reckon there'd be a few on that as well.
And announced and with great authority passed on the information of the passing of Kevin Murray.
And then Kevin Murray's wife rang and said, I just made him soup. He's sitting next to me here, like he's not dead. They had about an hour of tributes. Yeah.
Spider put together a little audio package of some highlights of the late Kevin Murray.
That was very amusing when his wife rang. I just hear he's passed. He's just had his supper. He's just, and it was very, very amusing.
So to finish off, last year with the 150th year, we were asking everyone their favourite memories and that sort of thing. But I think this year we might go forward and ask you, what is it you're most looking forward to with what we've got at the moment, or what could be coming, or what do you think? Where could we take it?
Here's the problem. I had a vision once. I sort of went to a place and I realised St Kilda's going to win a premiership the day after I die. Now,
I've had that same feeling. So.
Yeah, you're a lot younger than
I
me.
think
Okay.
there won't be any members the year after we do it.
Yeah, well, the 2 days after we do it. So I actually believe, now, call me crazy, and I've not had this feeling a lot following St Kilda. I'm talking, for 25 years, I just prayed we'd make a final. I really think that Ross Lyon is going to coach the premiership at St Kilda. And why do I believe that? I cannot believe that there's negative press around Ross as a coach. I mean, he took us to the absolute precipice. People talk about the bouncing ball with Milne. I can tell you, if Sam Fisher would have seen Justin Koschitzky run onto the ground, we win a premiership.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
or if Lee Montagna has a shot instead of centering it late, that's another one.
Yeah, and the year before we actually played better, to be honest.
Yeah.
So he can't do any more than that. I don't think Fremantle has such a stellar history to poo-poo the fact that he got them into a grand final. So we're talking about
if a couple of them had kicked straight too. A couple of them had kicked straight.
Yeah, I'm saying that. That's exactly right. They had them for a period in that game. They were all over them. So I really believe Ross Lyon is going to be a premiership coach at St Kilda. He's so driven. He so believes that is his football calling. So I just need to stay healthy. I am healthy at the moment. Stop vaping. Yeah, that's right. You heard it. You heard me. Vaping. Just cross at the lights, keep my cool in traffic, and I really believe that they can deliver unto us. And it's a pity you didn't ask me for the 150 year what my great St Kilda memory is.
You can jump in, yeah.
Well, St Kilda has had a colourful history, and I immerse myself in the history. I love the prehistory of the AFL. I've got these magnificent books by, I can't remember his name, on the formation of football. And do you know we once kept Footscray scoreless in a game in the VFL before the VFA, before the VFL was formed? I take pride in that. But I do believe we've had some of the greatest names ever to play the game have played for St Kilda. And of all of those great names, do you know the greatest name ever to play the game? I think he played 5 games for St Kilda. Harry H. Horsenail.
Where's that family gone?
Where are the Horsenails? I mean, if his role wasn't played by Groucho Marx, then I'm a very poor judge of casting. But, yeah. So for the club that gave us Harry H. Horsenail, sky's the limit.
I thought Mordecai Bromberg was the pick of it, but that takes the cake. Finey, we look forward to Friday night and having you on, and we look forward to hopefully catching up at the footy over the course of the season. It's been a great way for us to start the year, and hopefully that premonition rings true, and we might all, I think, have to cross at the lights and keep ourselves nice and safe for the ensuing 6 months.
Yep, boys, I'm a true believer. I'm sure you guys are as well. So, also, congratulations on a fantastic podcast.
Thanking you.
To be honest, I haven't heard any other clubs' podcasts, so I can't really measure it against any other clubs. But it does St Kilda proud. So, well done.
Thank you, Finey. We look forward to it.
See you, fellas. See you in the finals.